Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This video is going to be about what's stopping your astral projection. I'm going to answer a question, and I'm going to talk about an experience I had and a city that I saw in the future. I'd like to thank the new subscribers. Those totals keep building every day, and I appreciate it, especially since astral projection, while I consider it a very interesting topic, it's not something that the massive number of people out there know about or are interested in. So I am extremely appreciative for everyone who is tuning into this channel and subscribing, and especially when they hit that bell button. Let's start off first with a question from my last podcast. It was the one where I was pulled out of my body by an angel who pretty much drafted me to assist him/her in freeing some trapped spirits who were stuck in the lower astral in a funeral parlor of all lovely places. The topic of angels came up in a number of questions. Who are angels? Where do they come from? Does your experience in any way, shape, or form validate Christianity, for example? My thoughts on this topic are pretty straightforward and I think simple. I don't believe that this experience, or indeed any of my experiences, either validates or invalidates any organized religion or series of religious beliefs, whether it be a Judeo-Christian religion, or Buddhism, or Shintoism, or you name it. I was raised a Protestant mainline Christian as a child. Now, I don't consider, and I am not a member of any organized religion today. However, that thought process, that vocabulary is still a part of who I am. So it's natural for me to assign a label like angel to this very powerful, bright energy that I saw. But I'm also extremely aware that if I had been raised as a Buddhist or in a wide variety of other world religions, I probably would have assigned it some different type of name. So that's just my answer to that particular question. So don't use my particular experience as a reason to either gain a new religious belief or abandon one which you currently subscribe to. Just take it as an experience from my unique viewpoint and take from it what you will. What's stopping your astral projection? Now, I speak with people, and they say they've read many books by Robert Monroe and many others. They have listened to HemiSync and other tapes. They have gone on various astral websites. They have subscribed to channels like this one, for example. And they try and they try and they try, and sometimes they have partial experiences. They'll feel the vibrations, but then nothing happens, or they'll get out for a second and they get sucked back in again. And they start getting a little frustrated. Well, the first thing I want to say, obviously, is I think patience needs to be counseled here. This is somewhat more in depth and somewhat more difficult than perhaps riding a bike is. So as Americans, we were always extremely impatient people. We want what we want, and we want it now. So perhaps it does require a little extra patience. However, one of the problems I think we have in situations like the one I just described, we're not dealing with a lack of training. We're not dealing with ignorance. However, I think what we're dealing with is an unconscious mind that is not cooperating for whatever reason. Freud talked about the unconscious mind. I would say he was first among the modern types of psychologists, and he described it as a repository of unconscious pain and misery and lots of negative emotions. Today, we have a little bit of a different understanding of it. Certainly, there's probably some pain and some PTSD type of things buried there, but we know that the unconscious mind aids us in maintaining the homeostasis of our body, keeping everything running properly when we sleep. And that's a very important function that the unconscious mind performs. But it also does other things. It helps us to work through trauma and stress through our dreams. If you've ever kind of nodded off on a chair somewhere when you were reading or perhaps watching a TV show or maybe listening to a podcast like this one, and you start nodding off and you start having a little dream, and then all of a sudden you get jarred awake to full consciousness. And you say something like, apricot elephants. And you say to yourself, where did that come from? The unconscious mind, and perhaps your dream at that point, it made a lot of sense. That apricot elephant did. But once you woke up and your conscious mind took over, it realized that it had no part in this thought, and so it naturally questions the validity of this thought. So the unconscious mind, though, is probably using that apricot elephant to symbolize something that some stress or some sort of issue that you're working out, and that it's using this symbology in some way, shape, or form to assist that process. When astral projection is involved, the unconscious mind needs to assist this process, or at minimum, it needs to not resist it. If you have some sort of an unconscious fear of astral projection or of losing control or what have you through this process, the unconscious mind can be a roadblock to full conscious astral projection. So how do we win over the unconscious mind? Well, it's not as easy as winning over a conscious mind. A conscious mind, you can read books, you can talk to people, they can make a convincing argument to you, and you can say, well, after reviewing the logic of this situation and the pro and the cons involved, I think I can alter my conscious opinion of this particular topic. And that's pretty straightforward, and that's how the logical conscious mind works. However, this is not how the unconscious mind works. As I said, it works in a very emotional, a very symbolic realm. And I have found that repetition, much like with a younger child when you're trying to train them, can be very valuable. So when I was younger, I started having these what I considered wild astral projections. They happened when they happened. I really didn't have a lot of control out of them at first. I mean, I was just a small child. But as I grew a little older, got into my preteen era, and I'd heard about making suggestions to the unconscious mind as you fall asleep. Now, these particular things I read about, it may have been associated with Dale Carnegie or something like that. My father was always listening to tapes like that, talking about making self-improvement suggestions. And perhaps I heard that idea and I started thinking to myself, I wonder if I could use that to help gain control of astral projections and perhaps to have increase their incidence. And to get a better handle on the whole phenomena. So at that point, I had laid the foundation for building my suggestion that I would give myself. And every night, as I would fall asleep, I would repeat these words over and over again. And please keep in mind that it's my words here that in and of themselves are not important. If this is something you decide to do, put it in your own words. There's nothing magical about the words. They worked for me because they were simple, direct, and it was something that I could easily memorize and repeat over and over and over to myself as I was falling asleep. You should do whatever works best for you. Now, the other thing I want to say before I get into my suggestion here is ensure that as you're saying these things that you have a visual component to this suggestion. The words themselves are of value, but they're more of value to the conscious mind than they are the subconscious. The words, in fact, are really designed for your conscious mind to help stay focused. The visual component, which you should do as you're falling asleep and as you're saying these words, will really be of much more value to your unconscious mind. So do not neglect to, as you're saying the words, to visualize yourself doing these actions, because that will be the key linchpin to, number one, convincing the unconscious mind that this is fine, this is something that should be done, this is something safe, and this is something that it should aid your conscious mind in accomplishing. So, what I said as I fell asleep was, tonight, as I fall asleep, my mind will awaken. I will decide to leave my body. I will go where I wish to go, do what I wish to do in complete safety. And when I return to my body, I will remember everything that occurred when I awake. As I said, I would say that little mantra, that's what I turned into after a while, over and over again as I fell asleep with that strong visual component. And I would picture myself falling asleep. I would picture myself making this decision to leave my body, going somewhere. I would visualize that, and then coming back and maintaining the memory of my experience. And eventually, after I did this for, I forget whether it was weeks or months, to be honest with you, I started experiencing astral projection on a much larger frequency basis, having longer astral projections and maintaining the memory of what occurred much more completely than I did in what I consider my, quote, wild astral projection experiences. So, if you have read all of the books, listened to all the podcasts, read all the websites, listened to all the tapes, and you're still stuck somewhere, perhaps trying that. And keeping a quote-unquote dream journal with this process can also help to educate the unconscious that at minimum, whatever happens when you're asleep is important enough to jot down. It's important enough to remember. And I think if you do that, you'll find that you're remembering your dreams much more often. Now, when I'm talking about this, and we'll probably have a separate video on lucid dreaming in the future, but keep in mind that if you're the person who experiences lucid dreams, you can also use this as a way to astral project. And as I said, I'll have a video about that in the future. But just be aware that that is also a very valuable state to be in as well. So if you experience those, please encourage yourself to continue to do so. Okay, that is about the unconscious mind and how you can use it to astral project. To finish off this podcast, I'd like to share with you what I call a visit to a strange future city. I was looking to travel thousands of years into the future. I didn't set a particular time, just thousands of years into the future. And I was, of course, in the United States at the time, so I'm assuming that that's where this occurred. So here we go. Visit to a strange future city. I had an interesting astral projection last night. I went thousands of years into the future in the Charlotte, North Carolina area and found myself surprisingly in a desert with a very peculiar looking enormous structure in the distance. As I flew rapidly towards this city, I observed what appeared to be an abandoned art project that had been somehow gone mad, gone insane. The entire complex was a city complete with streets and homes, and it appeared to be woven out of some type of smooth polymer composite material. The fabric itself had many colors, but the predominant color was maroon. It reminded me of a volcanic type glass in its lack of porosity. I was reminded of some of these southwestern canyons and rock formations that have been weathered over millennia to form fantastic shapes, outcroppings, and formations. But this city wasn't a hollowed out natural rock outcropping. Instead, this futuristic city had been spun into one continuous, free flowing, overgrown spider web with an open asymmetrical area interspaced throughout. The fantastic structure itself was at least a mile in diameter, and it surrounded a now barren central open plaza. The Lost Metropolis must have been empty for some time, because sand had accumulated everywhere. It was a testament to the builders and their raw material, however, that the city appeared completely intact. I found no fallen bricks or rubble that one would most certainly see in any long deserted human city of today. I inspected a few of these homes and found nothing but the same strange building material. The building plans weren't precisely identical, but a central table at about knee height in the main room grew from the floor in every house I visited. The units had 1 to 3 auxiliary rooms radiating from the central living room. A wide shelf jutting from the wall surrounded the entire central room at the same height as the table. I imagine petite people could have seated themselves on that ledge comfortably. I discovered no other furniture or even trash that you might find in a city vacated quickly. I assume the residents must have left this amazing town in an organized way, leaving nothing they could carry with them behind. I flew in and out of the open areas in an erratic search pattern that doubled as a thrilling serpentine maneuver. I have to have fun after all. Unfortunately, I could find no other evidence or clues as to the past residents of this amazing structure. I wanted to share that with you. Like many of my projections into the future, I end up with more questions than answers. Who built this fantastically interesting and innovative city? I have no idea. Certainly, it's from a culture that is more advanced than our own. But it's interesting to know that even our culture has been making great strides in working with polymer composites and doing things like 3D printing of a variety of commercial and industrial objects. So who knows what type of invention or what have you will allow us in the future to build an entire city out of this type of material. Well, that is the conclusion of this podcast. I hope you found it interesting. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. and hit that bell button. Once again, I want to thank everyone, and I appreciate each and every one of you. If you have any questions, please ask them, and I guarantee I will do my best to answer them on a prompt basis. And as always, I will see you on the astral plane.